All right, we're on to, again, test 2, section 2. Number 1, here we go. It says, in recent years, public libraries in the United States have experienced reducing in their operating funds due to cuts imposed. Now, in this one, what we're trying to do is find the most clear and concise answer that would fit in this sentence. Now, the way this starts says, public libraries have experienced what? So you say they've experienced reducing. Doesn't make any sense, does it? So it's not going to be A. They've experienced reductions. Fits. They've experienced, they have experienced deducting. No. They have experienced deducts. No. So hopefully the only one that even comes close to even looking good here is going to be B, which it should be. So again, number 1 is B. It's your most clear, concise answer that fits the sentence. Number 2, it looks like we're dealing with a trigger words. So in this case, we are talking about in the sentence before, public libraries have experienced reductions in their operating funds due to cuts imposed at the federal, state, and local levels. So they've experienced deductions in their funds. Next, the next sentence states, library staffing has been cut by almost 4% since 2008, and the demand for librarians continues to decrease. So they've had reductions and they've been making cuts. So these are similar things. So when you're looking at your answer choices, however, when it fit, they are similar. Nevertheless, probably not. Previously, no. Consequently, yes. This is more like a cause and effect relationship. And B gives you that proper cause and effect relationship. So again, number 2 is going to be B. Moving on to number 3. So when you read this one, obviously we have has versus have, or which have, which has. I'm going to start on this one by focusing in on has, have, see which one should it be plural or singular, because that's really what we're going to be dealing with here. So what you want to do, obviously, get the trend, start with this trend, read that sentence. So this trend combined with the increasing accessibility of information via the internet is a non-essential clause. So I'm going to get rid of it. So when I read this sentence, it says, this trend has led. This trend is singular, so we should say has after it. We don't need to say which. We want to find the most clear and concise answer that goes with this one. So in this case, has is fine. It's short, and it's the proper, it's singular versus singular. So it's going to win. So our answer in this case is going to be A for number 3. Next, we have number 4. It says, at this point, the writer's considering adding the following information. So we have this statement that says ebooks, audio and video materials, and online journals. So let's see if we should add it. Now, if we're going to add something, it has to fit the main idea of the paragraph. So as you read this paragraph, just kind of get the main idea. It says the share of library materials, and I'm starting right up here, the share of library materials that is in non-print formats is increasing steadily. So we have materials in non-print formats increasing steadily. In 2010, at least 18.5 million ebooks were available. As a result, librarians must now be proficient curators of electronic information and updating these collections. So they functions, talk about computers' needs and things like that. So this is all about electronic media. So we want to see if this kind of fits that. So going back to where they would add that sentence at this point. So the share of library materials that is in non-print formats, and then they have a non-essential clause. Ebooks, audio and video materials, and online journals is increasing steadily. So it's just really giving information about what these non-print formats are, because otherwise they don't really mention them. So this would probably be a yes. It doesn't just go away from the main idea. It kind of fits it. So yes, because it provides specific examples of the materials discussed in that sentence, or yes, because it illustrates the reason for the increase mentioned later in the sentence. There's no reason. This is giving me examples because otherwise you don't know what these non-print formats are. This tells you. So number 4 is going to be A. Number 5 says, in 2010 at least 18.5 million ebooks were available for them to circulate. Now, the key is on this, because when I look at these answer choices, I see for them to be circulated, for their circulating, or for circulation. I see these pronouns listed, and the key is, do I really need these pronouns to be listed? Or, for them, I should say. Do I need them to say them? So the share of library materials is increasing steadily. At least 18.5 million ebooks were available. And again, I want to find the most clear and concise answer. So could I say something like for circulation? And if you look in, do you need the them or the there? No, you don't. Because if you just get rid of it, and we're going to pick the shortest answer available, D is going to be just going to fit. If you look at this, it says, and read the sentence at this point, the share of library materials that is in non-print formats is increasing steadily. In 2010, at least 18.5 million ebooks were available for circulation. That's perfectly fine. We don't need to say them. It's not making the sentence confusing or figuring out what we're talking about. So fit 5 is going to be a clear and concise answer, is going to be D. Then we have number 6. As a result, librarians must now be proficient curators of electronic information, compiling, catalog, and updating these collections. Now, I've already highlighted these from a previous question, but these kind of fit again. Well, no, I didn't highlight this one, but we have compiling, then we have catalog, and then we have updating. Now, we should have a parallel structure here in each item on our list, and catalog doesn't seem to fit. Compiling, cataloging, and updating would be parallel, so D should be our answer for number 6. So that's what we're going to pick for that one. And then we move on to number 7. We've got a very wordy question here, but we want to combine these underlined sentences. So if you're going to combine these sentences, what I'm going to do is look at the answer choices, and there's some things that should stand out. There's certain structures that College Board is going to prefer when kind of writing a sentence, and I see some of them popping up here. So a lot of these, they start off with these phrases like in fact, and then I see another one down here, and they're showing up in a couple of them. And again, with this one, it may be hard to see the right answer until you recognize the second thing. But I mentioned this a few times, where if you have a comma or two sets of commas within a sentence, that's normally going to represent a non-essential clause. And as you go through your answer choices on this one, you're going to see that non-essential clause get used in B. Notice here, if I get rid of this statement, oops, I should probably, right here. So if I get rid of this statement right here, that's going to be a non-essential clause. Now, again, is it a non-essential clause? Well, you got to read and see if it takes off any information that helps, that makes a sentence, kind of change its meaning, or it's hard to understand. Because if it does do that, then it is an essential clause. Therefore, it'd be written incorrectly. So B says, in fact, many librarians teach classes in internet navigation, database and software use, and digital information literacy. So this one, that little clause in here, whose training now includes courses on research and internet search methods, that's really not really required for this sentence, but it's okay to have it. Well, that makes it a non-essential clause. So this one is taking the non-essential information and clumping it together in one clause. And that's going to be probably your more efficient way of writing the sentence, is to clump that information together. So that's why B ends up working, whereas these other ones don't do that. You notice A has a comma and a semicolon for that same statement, so that's not going to work. And then here they don't really, the other ones, they don't put the full non-essential clause together. It's kind of missing it. Here they say, internet search methods. Many librarians, in fact, are teaching classes in internet navigation, database software use, and digital information literacy. This one doesn't have a non-essential clause anywhere, so it's not really taking that information and clumping it together, so it's not going to be C. And D doesn't do it either. This just kind of doesn't, basically, if you look at all these, all of them don't put the non-essential information non-essential clauses into one clause. So B does that. So if you see that format done correctly, that's just the answer you're going to pick. So you don't have to sit there and try to decipher all these other ones, which is very wordy too, by the way. It would take you a while. So 7 is just going to be B, non-essential clauses on that one. Moving on to number 8. So on number 8 it says, while these classes are particularly helpful to young students developing basic research skills. Now this one, by the way, we see while these classes. So when you see that, that's important to kind of pay attention to, because after that comma, it's going to set up what comes after the comma, which shouldn't be but. While they do this, adult patrons can also benefit. So adult patrons can also benefit should come after it. The whole point of using the while at the beginning of the sentence is that you're already doing a comparison. So you don't need any other conjunction to state that. It really ends up being redundant. So 8 doesn't need to have any sort of conjunction because it's already been stated that a comparison is taking place. So we don't need that sentence, or that word I should say. So 8 is going to be D. We can just get rid of it altogether. So that's going to be, again, number 8. And then we have number 9. Next it says, or this one says, free to all who utilize their services, comma, public libraries and librarians are especially valuable. So for this one, I'm noticing on this one we have a statement at the beginning of the sentence, maybe like a modifier per se. We just need to make sure this modifier effectively sets up the examples that are given at the end of the sentence. So that's what we really need to focus on. So let's read those examples so we know which ones will match that the best, or which one will set it up the best. So here it says public libraries and librarians are especially valuable because they offer free resources that may be difficult to find elsewhere, such as help with online job searches as well as resume and job material development. So they're talking about people trying to get jobs. Those are your examples. So when you say free to all who utilize their services, maybe they are free and people don't have jobs, may not have money, so I may keep that. B says during periods of economic recession. I kind of like both of these. This one, though, I like a little better because it more focuses on the fact that maybe you don't have a job because there's a recession. Whereas A just says it's free, so that can have lots of different meanings. So I like B a little bit better, so I'm going to get rid of A. And I'll read C. I'll keep B right now. Although their value cannot be measured, it doesn't talk about the economic recession. When it comes to free services libraries provide, again, they're talking about free, but not necessarily that you're looking for jobs because, we're in a recession and there's a lot of joblessness out there. So B is the one that kind of matches the fact that maybe people will be looking for jobs. So that's going to be number 9. Next up, we have number 10. So we have, in this case, an overwhelming number of public libraries also report that they provide help with electronic government resources related to income taxes, law troubles, and retirement programs. Now this is going to be an example of register because law troubles doesn't really fit the tone of this passage. You want to find a better way to say it that matches the tone of the passage itself. We have income taxes. I'd say legal issues sounds a little bit better than law troubles in terms of the tone, the formality, I should say, of the passage. If you compare those two, again, legal issues would fit better with this the way this passage is written. C says concerns related to law courts is a little too wordy, and matters for the law courts, again, a little too wordy. We can just say legal issues. It's the most clear and concise answer, but it also has it matches the tone of the passage. So number 10 is going to be B. And then we have number 11, says which choice most clearly ends the passage with a restatement of the writer's primary claim. So you have to understand, again, what's the writer's primary claim. So as you read this passage, it really is about librarians. At the very beginning of the passage, it talks about librarians, how, their roles have changed. They have some statements at the beginning that says, yeah, there's fewer of them, but that's not really about the staffing issues and they have to be cut. That's great, or it's not great, but that's not what the whole passage is about. It's more about now, because of this, their roles have changed and they need to be a lot more tech savvy and be able to do a lot more different things as you kind of scroll through this passage. So Anyway, by the time we get here, we want to restate that. So let's take a look and see which one restates that central claim. So A says, like books, librarians have been around for a long time, but the internet is extremely useful for many types of research. That doesn't say about librarians' roles having to change and be more tech savvy, so I'm not going to pick that as an answer. B says, although the roles have diminished significantly, librarians will continue to be employed by public libraries for the foreseeable future. Now, they do kind of mention this at the beginning, but the rest of this answer doesn't match. They'll continue to be employed. Why? It doesn't mention the why and the technology piece. So I'm going to get rid of that because it's not completely right. C says the growth of electronics, so we're talking about electronic information, has led to a diversification of librarians' skills and services, positioning them as savvy resource specialists for patrons. That is exactly what this passage is talking about, so C is probably going to be my answer. D says, however, given their extensive training and skills, librarians who have been displaced by budget cuts have many other possible avenues of employment. Really, they never got into other avenues of employment. They just said the librarians we have now are tech savvy now. So it doesn't really mention this second half, and that's where D ends up being wrong. So C is going to be your answer for number 11.